So let's see what is the response that we are getting. So let me set that up. Socket self dot. So just like we are sending a request um, from here, a login request through an Emit, we can always listen to the server response using um, just like whatever we have. It works the same way. On is like we are listening to change some event which is happening from somewhere, and emit is something we are emitting from some place. So right now from the client we emitted, and that emitted value is being listened here, like on these. This is my Node.js chat room server code. So it's listening here, and once an event happens, it listens on this. I think I was looking at the wrong place. I need to actually look at this server, because whatever I was looking into is a different server. So let me just check what is the server use cases factory. It is Dam Beach 814446. Okay, so I was looking at the wrong server. So let's see the logs. It should actually show me. Yes, see, it was actually happening. I was looking at the wrong place. So let me just go back and show it once again. Let me just rerun. I can clear these logs, I guess. Okay, let it remain. User connected. It's already saying user is connected at 140. Its timestamp is different because it's not pointing to my time zone. So user is already connected because as soon as I launched it, the connect got trigger. Looks like now I start it. Wish at gmail.com. Ideally, it should only happen after I log in, so we can do that change pretty much. So let's see. Okay, there were so many requests here. Get calls, socket polling is happening. Let's see what happens as soon as I hit login. So you got a login request, and it said logged in, user logged in with username wish and email wish at the gmail.com. So that's what is being emitted from my server code. This is my Node.js server code. I'm just sending a. It does not do anything crazy here. It's just sending a send whatever it is accepting. It is sending to everyone that this user has already joined, or even I will whoever is also joining gets that callback from here. So client name, email, and the current timestamp is what I'm sending. So let's see what I am getting on the client end. I'm also interested in knowing what is that. So within the login setup, I can just say self dot socket dot on. So I'm gonna listen to that event login response. That's what is defined as an emit call within my Node.js server. Login response is what is emitting on this event. So I should be listening on that event, and I get a callback here. So how do I receive that callback? So I can just say callback is normally received as a data array and a socket acknowledgement. I guess this is ACK's acknowledgement. I don't know, maybe this one I need to venture out more, because as a use case I did not much find much about this one, but this is what a data is, what we receive. This one we don't really need to care at this point. So let's see what is that data. We can maybe print and see the whole thing. Login successful for user, and I can just maybe print the whole damn thing, data array. So might be now we will start getting that callback. We can actually see this within our response. Wish at the gmail.com. So login successful for received for login request received, and then you got this login successful for user wish wish at the Gmail, and within a timestamp it is showing a different timestamp because it is connected to a server which is maybe residing in another time zone. That's the reason it's giving me a different timestamp. But then it has started giving me response callbacks. So there are different events which I can capture from there. Like I have defined even for what a user is connected, I can always listen to on connection at that point. So even I can define something like similar like this on connect. It's connection or on connection. It's just on. I think once you connect it, let's see. I think I can even listen to connection data array log user connected user connected. I think I don't get anything more than that here. Let's see. Launches, it does not give me anything. That means it's not, that is not being emitted from the server. Let me see what all things I have captured. Okay, the connection state is not something which is which I am listening on, but I can always emit even that, like once a user is connected, but I can always uh, check my, nothing is emitted from there. So I just get a participant list. I guess that is something I can always use a joint response. So there are things, start typing. I have different events here, but nothing for this. Is something which only the client, the server is, but I can always emit as soon as this happens. I can say client socket dot emit connection setup. I can always emit that, but that's not needed here. I'm just using, I don't think I need this on connected or something, but then yeah, now I have this login response available. So user is logged in. So whatever I'm going to use that same data to actually create a response object. So let's do that. So this setup is too much early right now. So we can actually do that after this login is successful. So let's, before that, let's complete this wiring where I can maybe send this response through like I said, I'm gonna move all these login response and everything within a struct chat socket. I'm just gonna call it as struct request and struct response. And within the struct, all I'm gonna say is static let login. Okay, what is that? Right now we had a login and a login response. Static let login response. Login and response. So I'm gonna replace these two things. Chat socket. Where did we made the first call here? So chat socket dot request dot login and chat socket response dot login response. The two things I have replaced now. So this is what is going to be. This is what we will keep updating whenever we are adding new. We already know what all events are going to come from the server or what is that the server is expecting as an event. So we already know this. So we can even clearly define what needs to be defined there. Connect is something I think even on disconnect uh, we are just saying that the user is disconnected. That's it. So his state is changed and he's getting removed from the server. So that's my server. So this is done. Now we need to send this back to the service, from the service to the interactor. Like now it is right now it is at the service layer. So we need to send it back to the interactor saying a user has joined or logged in. So that response callback we can send it by, I'm gonna define um, a relay here. So I'm gonna import rxweb and rx relay. So using that, I'm going to define the relays required. Can be one is a private instance of the socket response relay, which I'll be using internally to set the state changes. So I'm going to use it as a publish relay because there are a couple of relays. Publish relay, behavior relay. Publish relay will not um, replay values. Like if let's say somebody has connected later to this service and he wants to know the last value which is received. So if you want to that kind of a replay, like a history of things which has happened with those signals, like if somebody has connected, somebody had connected earlier, he has left now, you want that kind of a response callback after maybe you came, let's say you were in a different screen and came back to a new screen, and you want the last state to be published to you. At that point, if you want some kind of a behavior like that, then you will use rx relays behavior relay, which actually sends you a history of events, or it's called replay. If you don't want replay, if you just need to send the signals as and when you're receiving, you're not worried about actually the history of what is happening, then you can use a publish relay. That's the reason I'm using a publish relay here. I'm not worried about what was the last date. I just want to update the current state whenever it is received. That's why I'm gonna use a publish relay. So So these responses, there are different kinds of responses I'm expecting. So for that, I'm going to define, I'm going to send different responses. Something like username and email is what on logged in state. That is what this is going to play back, because you saw with this response that I was receiving the username, email, as well as the date and timestamp. I'm not worried so much right now. Maybe in the future, maybe I can correct that with the pointing to the right timestamp of the server. I can modify it, and then maybe I need to do a bit more parsing there. But right now, all the things I am interested in to actually get the, if let username is equal to data array of the index 0, I am expecting username, and at index 1 I'm expecting email. These are the two things I'm interested. If I get those two, I need to send it back to the interactor so that it can consume those. So I'm going to define one more. I'm going to define in enum. I think it's better that I define it within models so that it's accessible for everyone. New file, conference, WebSocket response, or WebSocket response, WebSocket response. I can maybe call it as WebSocket response. Enum WebSocket response, and I'm gonna have case. Right now I have one case where user has logged in. The values propagated are username and email. Those two are the values. I'm gonna keep it as public so that it is accessible for everyone. I can rename it to chatroom websocket dot response is another enum within an enum. This makes more sense. Let's see. So chatroom websocket dot response is what I'm going to use. Let me go back to the service, import the model here, and I'm going to change this to chatroom websocket dot. I don't think I have the import of. I do have the import of models. Did I compile it? Fine. Use of undeclared type. Chatroom websocket. Okay, it was chatroom websocket. It's fine. Okay, I added it the right place. Let's go back to the models. Faces. Chatroom WebSocket is available. I think I need to do a clean build. Gave me so many errors. Okay, so let's finish this response. It's a publish relay. I'm gonna just instantiate that. This is so window is expecting landing. I don't think I have added landing to window. Window dependencies means landing. I think lots of things are missing there, so we need to add all of that. Even window needs chatroom login, I guess, and window might soon need more strings. So that is the error I was getting. I think that is resolved. Okay, that's pretty cool. So you have this now, the socket response relay. Now let's make it public so that let's create a lazy public lazy var socket response observable out of this. Relay, socket relay as observable. That's done. So we need now have a socket response observable which can be consumed from outside if you are having this. So also it makes sense to have this within our API, because that's the way we are going to consume this WebSocket service outside. So that is done. Now let's do this part. Self dot relay accept. What are we accepting? It's going to accept this response type, which is dot logged in, so we don't need the whole thing. Username, we already know username and email. So this will now propagate this value back to whoever wants to consume it. In this case, it is our auth interactor is what is needing that value. So we already have this interactor. We already know this is the socket response we had exposed through this now WebSocket API. So now it's available. I can now filter on things to see what is the response I am getting. I can see guard let $0 guard case if $0 is logged in. Then else I will say don't do anything. If it is logged in, that is the case, then I will send it and then I can map on this response. So filter map is one um, way of handling your responses in RX Swift. It's more like if else itself, but then you filter on this signal. If logged in signal is received, you do the next step of mapping that logged in signal, which is in this case, I'm gonna receive this response as something. I'm gonna say result and I'm gonna translate that to a user element, which I don't think I have a import of it. So I'm gonna models. So whatever I receive as a response here, I'm gonna convert that into a user object. That's a mapping I'm gonna do. So filter map is how you do it. Filter it. If the response is, if the signal is right, return that, and then you can map it to something else. So in this case, the guard will be the similar structure logged in, but with this login now I have email and username and email. So I can use those two values to create a, this can be nil. If it is, if these two are not there, I just return nil. So I know it is the result. Otherwise I can return user, which accepts username and email. That's it. Initializer is accessible. So I need to make it public. That's it. So email and username is what I am accepting here. So it might ask me to swap it. So swapped it, email and username. So I'm filtered and mapped it, and the logged in user is received right now. That's what I need to send it to whoever needs it, or um, user is received. So I'm gonna not use it here, but instead I'm gonna use it within this login function, because that is where I need those, because on login I make a request to login and I'm gonna get this response through this. So it's going to be a one-time activity, because I'm not expecting this to send back multiple signals. It's only one login and it's going to send me a one login information. So whatever I'm going to do is I'm going to move this within this and get rid of this return never, and instead I'm going to return this thing. So this is again expecting a return type of single void. So that's what I ultimately, that is what we need to return here. So let's gear up for that. So what is going to happen here is on login request from somewhere, let's say from the presenter, I get this request, I do a login and I wait for the response, which is going to happen through this. So response is coming through this. I get a logged in response through this. I parse it, I make it as a logged in user information, and maybe I just save it. If I had realm, I will save it for the time being. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create within this account interactor a logged in user information. So I'm going to call it um, what am I going to call it? I'm going to create a relay instead of right now I'm not going to have a I'm not going to have a database in place, but instead I'm going to use a relay, RX Swift relay import. Just that it's not persisted, it will only remain until the application is running. So I'm gonna keep it as a behavior relay. In this case, I'm gonna use a behavior relay because I need the history whenever, if, let's say I go to a new screen, it should replay back the last value which it has, which will be the logged in user information. So that's the reason I'm gonna use a user behavior relay instead of a publish relay. Behavior relay I need to instantiate with a nil value, and I can use this value. So majorly I would have created a, I'm gonna create an extension now to save this user, but that save is not going to do much, but it's just going to accept that value which I'm gonna map from here. So let me just create that extension for account interactor. We keep it as private. Ideally it should have saved within a database or something, but then I'm gonna say save user, and it's going to accept a user object void. No, not void, because I need a single void type, because that is the response type which is it is expecting. So on completion of save, I'm just going to say return an empty. So I'm just going to say return dot just single dot just empty. Not doing much, but that's not giving me an error. But save user is going to accept this user, and even this can be an empty user. So I'm gonna just keep it as this, and right now I'm gonna flat map on this and call this function save user, and this, so I'm going to accept the user. So I don't think it should give me an error now. Cannot convert. Okay, so it needs to be a single. So I can also do a take one, so that the observable ends right away. It's going to take one value of the signal and then save it, and then that's it. This end observable is going to end then and there. So advantage being no advantage. That's how it should work. So what is happening here? It's very interesting, the chaining of these functions. So I did a login from presenter. It gave me a call to this login, and this login is finally expecting a result which is a response type, which is like a single of empty, nothing. It's just going to send an empty single. Single is nothing but an observable which will only emit one value, and after emitting that one value, that observable is going to end right away. It's going to get disposed. And if it was a normal observable, it would have given n number of signals until the time it encounters an error. So as soon as it encounters an error, an observable is going to end. That's how an observable works. In this case, we it can either end after receiving one value, or if it encounters an error. There is no scenario where we are going to encounter an error in this case, because we don't have any kind of validation as yet. But when we have validation in place, then we need to have the error handling as well. At that point, we might just say, oh, you encountered an error. Now, this was the error. Send it back to the user interface and show that error. And then maybe correct that error, trigger one more login request like this. It comes through the same functionality. And then it waits for this response. If it is the logged in response, filter on that, get the user, save that user. In this case, even this is saving a nil type user which is sent from here. So I'm not validating even that. I'm even dumping that empty nil user if login has failed in some case. Now, right now it is not going to fail, at least in this case. And once that save, oh, we don't have a save function. We need to have this self dot relay dot accept. We're gonna accept that user. That's the save part which is happening. So once that save has happened, why did I create a relay? Because I want this to be available for anybody, right? Public lazy var user. I'm just going to call it as a user object. That's more like a logged in user, and it's going to be an observable type of user and it's going to use this user relay dot as observer. So that's what this account interactor is going to do. It's going to log in the user, store that user within this user relay, and whoever needs it can access this logged in user currently using this user observable. It's nothing but an observable value coming from this behavior relay, and that's how this thing is going to work. So I think now we are at a state where we can transition from this screen to the next screen, because login is going to succeed. You're going to see whole of this work. I'm going to keep breakpoints here, and then it's going to hit the save, and then finally it's going to send it back to the presenter. Let's see, even have a breakpoint at presenter, login presenter use cases. It's going to map here. Let's do a map here. But finally, after this map is where it's going to route to the new screen. So this login is successful. We need to route it to a new screen. So that's I'm going to call route to tab bar screens. So I'm just going to keep a comment here because that is again an implementation which we will have to do. So maybe after this is done, we'll take that up. So I'm just keeping a comment here. But router is going to come here and route it back to a tab screen because login is successful. That's going to happen here. So maybe a print here. Login succeeded. Login successful for user. So we are going to see this print after the login is completed. So if that is fine, then everything is working fine. You got this login request until the response. And even this login can happen in a background thread. And maybe we can dispatch it in a background thread. We can see even that happening. Let's see. Let's first do this. So it has to go through the whole thing, come back here and save this user. If that is complete, then I think our first session with the WebSocket will be complete. Then we'll take up the tab bars thing in the next episode. So let's run and see. I think I have covered all of this to a great extent. If you are in doubt, please send in your comments so that I can tackle those. So I'm going to hit login. So login has succeeded. It's sending this response callback. It's coming as logged in. Username and email is coming here. So it's a valid one. It's going to get stored. It's coming here. It's going to call it's going to now user. It's going to go through this tab and it's going to save here. Came here. User gets saved, and you're going to see this logging successful for user printed from the presenter. So if you hit it again, it's going to go through the same flow. One more thing we need to be wary about is whether this is, let's keep a debug, because this should be deallocated as soon as this login flow is completed. So we can maybe call it as login flow false. So it should be WebSocket login flow. You should be seeing a deallocation as soon as let's just check what all phases it goes through. Run it again. It should deallocate rightly. Let's remove this thing because we already know this is working. So validation part, we don't need that. Where is that? Okay, we don't need this anymore. Wish gmail.com. Trigger, save, boom, it's gone. So you see that it's disposed finally. So it's gone through different phases, sending the signal, receiving, and finally disposing. That's what is expected. Otherwise, there is a problem. First thing, login flow is subscribed. then it sends the first signal where it receives that next signal, and after that it disposes. So that's how it works. So one of the things you can actually do is, even instead of keeping this here, you can even move this whole thing within subscribed as well. So first phase is do on subscribed. Let me show you that as well. Take one flat map as single, do on subscribed. We can call these use cases. Okay, weak self in self dot websocket response dot login, accepting these two params, username and email. Let's see what happens when this is the case. So it's more like completely chained right now. So what happens is, as soon as the subscription is hit, missing argument on next. Okay, so let's go on subscribed. Do we need everything? We just see what's more. Do on subscribed. Okay, that's the only thing we need. And we can move this. Does it give an error? Itself in. That's it. So let's see whether on subscribe, this is first thing which needs to happen. On login, subscription happens, you give make a login request and the response comes back here. So that's what is expected now. Let's see, this is more like the ideal flow. Hit, this is hit because on subscribed is hit the first thing, and it gives a login request and it goes to the regular flow, is disposed. Finally login is successful. So we covered in this episode how to set up the login using a WebSocket. So WebSocket is ready right now, it is connected, but one of the optimization that we need to do is I think pretty much that there is no optimizing needed now, because we need the WebSocket even for logging in. So connection is needs to be established right now. But if you are going, let's say, with an HTTP model, this WebSocket connection will not be needed at this point, because we need to only establish that after the HTTP login is complete. But at least for the time being, this is working fine. So I guess it's pretty much fine right now, this approach. And the next thing that we are going to cover is to actually transition to the next screen. So because you already received it here, login is successful for the user. Now we need to move to a tab bar screen from the login screen. That's what is in scope of the next episode. So I'm going to publish whatever I have right now in the code base as is to my patron site. If you need access, you need to subscribe and then get access to this code base. My server is also available. I'm also going to publish the server code as well, the Node.js code, if you are interested. Otherwise, primary focus is on this right now on this tutorial episodes on iOS, but there is also a Node.js WebSocket tutorial which I'm planning along with it parallelly. So stay subscribed. Wait for the next episode, which is transition to the next screen, setting up the whole on tab screens. So that is coming up pretty soon. So until the next episode, it's bye from me.